there's so many bits and pieces to it, but you can have instant fame, and does that really qualify success? I think there's I know 220 Kid, he's a lovely guy. He did that Sea Shanty remix, does like 220 million streams or whatever it is. I think would he do it again if he'd done it? Because I think it put him into a different bracket where he's now fighting to come back out of it. And so, you would say on the surface that's winning, but then is it not in other areas? So I think it's something to be really to worry about your side of the street, and also worry about what you find successful, and don't look at other people. Like, look at other people for inspiration, but just look at your side of the street. And that's why I always talk about people not casting judgment or not having comments or bullying people on social media, because just look at your side of the fucking street. Because if it's an absolute shit tip, you haven't got a leg to stand on, so worry about yourself. And it's the same thing with, what does success mean for you? And success mean for you might mean that you get to DJ 3 days a week, you get to come back to your studio, you get to spend time on the farm, and that is success. Now, someone else might look at that and go, well, he's not doing as much as he wants, but that's not that. It's your success,
How do you get to that point in your life where you can see that for yourself, though? Because I think it's easy said than done, right? It's easy for us to sit on our high horse, like we've both have a level of success in careers, and I'm just saying that not in personal life, but in career, we have a level of something that people would look up to, right? How do you get to that point where you're at, where you can process that? Because I can where you were saying about not necessarily enjoying the journey whilst you're there. It's like, literally, I played Red Rocks last weekend, and whilst I was DJing, I was like, how the fuck do I headline this? And it's like, it's not saying that I didn't enjoy it. I loved it. It was a great experience, but it's that thing in my head that is like, there's still so much further to go. And it's like, and it's like, how have you got to that point? Like, what's the process, and like, what work have you done to get to that point?
So firstly, that's perfect. Naturally, you played Red Rocks, which is an unbelievable venue. And if I said to you 10 years, and I don't know if you played it before or not.
Yeah, first time.
If I said to you 10 years ago you play Red Rocks, you'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they've got there, and the first thing you sat there is like, I want more. So I think that's a recipe for success. That's how you are successful, because you want more. But you have to catch yourself in that mind, and and a lot of it is controlling your thoughts in terms of. So when I was playing, I used to be very insecure around my playing ability. I always used to worry about making mistakes, fear of mistakes. So I would think in my head a lot about making mistakes, and missing tackles or dropping catches or fucking things up, and even DJ making switching the wrong deck off or doing something else. But your mind doesn't know whether you've done it or hasn't done it. So they put a load of prisoners in prison. Prisoners were obviously in prison, and they couldn't play golf. And they basically made them all visualize every day playing golf. And when they came back out, all their handicaps had improved by some of them, but drastically, because your mind can't tell whether you've done it or not. So with that mindset, if you're thinking about negative thoughts, you're kind of almost laying the foundation for it. So a therapist taught me to stop and correct the thoughts. If I thought about missing a tackle, I'd stop and imagine myself making the tackle and how good that felt. But knowing that I'd done it before and what it felt like, even from the shoulder contact on the legs to the smell of the grass to how it felt, because the more I could make it believable, the more my mind would embed that thought. And so, a lot of the times when you got to catch yourself when you think that, and you've got to go, I want more. There's a lot of journey, but fuck me, this is a big moment, and enjoy it. And I think you've also got to remember that what we'll discover whenever we leave this earth is that it was all about the journey in the first place, and that you never get to where you want to be, and there isn't anything else. And actually, it's all about the interactions you have with people, the experiences, the sensory things that you have, and that's what counts, because you'll never reach your goal. Because I give you £1 million, you'll want 10 million quid. I give you, you want to headline Red Rocks, you're going to want to play arenas, and then I gave you arenas, you're going to want to do something else, and because there's already somebody doing what you want to do better than you. So that's why you always have inspiration, but you never make it. And I think it's important to have that. And it's important to have goals, but you have to find satisfaction. And I was not satisfied for a long period of time because I always wanted more. I would always, I'd do something good, but I wanted something more. I went on the Lions tour, I didn't get to start a test. So I don't feel like I was necessarily a Lion, but there's other people who didn't get anywhere near a Lion. So now I look back after retiring, I'm like, I'm a Lion. I did that. That's fine. And I should be satisfied with it. So, and I think a lot of the stuff that I talked about has come out of seeing a sports psychologist since I was 17 to the other day, you know, and I think talking, and one thing I'm always acutely aware of, and I've got friends who do this, there's people in the public eye who read stuff. I could read a self-help book now and regurgitate it as like borrowed wisdom to you, and it would sound great. But if it doesn't sink in, you don't believe it, you don't practice it, then you're just repeating shit that doesn't make sense. And we live in a world of the internet where people just repeat shit all the time or come up with like wisdom. I do these things. Do you know what I mean? I spend some time visualizing what it feels like to perform in, you know, one in a DJ set. You know, I fucked up I had to have spinal surgery. I mean, that's how long ago. I don't know. It must be 3 years ago. We did a podcast, maybe. I don't know how long you've been doing it for. It was a while ago, but I had to have spinal surgery, and I got an opportunity to DJ with Simon Dunmore, and then Bob Sinclair jumped on at Cafe Mambo's, right? And I was on morphine because I couldn't really stand up straight, but they asked me to do it, and I was like, I'm never turning this down. And I was having this mega build. I was playing this Darius Sarossian track, like skipping along. It's wicked, and I was going to backspin off another deck, and I turned the wrong deck off. Basically, because I had two decks. What I normally do is I have two decks on one side, one on the other, and I always mix from one side to the other, so I don't do that. So even if I'm playing that, I can always go, so I know which side it is.
Yeah.
Because I was on one side, he was on one side. I wasn't used to doing it, and I just stopped the wrong thing. I obviously started it again, but I was like, fuck, I've just ruined it. I've just literally fucked it. And, you know, I love Simon. Simon's amazing, but he's quite, you know, he doesn't give a lot, Simon. And I wanted an arm around him. Bob was great. Bob was like, oh, it's just a little mistake. Don't worry about it. We rolled on. No one gave a fuck. But I wore that for days. I was like inconsolable afterwards. I was like, this is shit. I fucked it up. I'm awful now. And it brought me back to the times that when I was a player, that I'd made mistakes or done things, and I had to use all the tools that I'd learned to get over it again. And I went and started doing some self-analysis, but because I then did what I did when I was a player, and I started looking at comments online, people like, oh, you could mix a fucking cup of tea, all this shit. And you start, doesn't matter how invincible you start it starts to bleed into you. So
where does that come from on a deeper level though?
I think I'm probably just a bit of more. I mean, I was doing a podcast the other day, and kind of not what the guy said, but kind of more, not soft, but just kind of like a more sensitive. I'm more sensitive than you perhaps I would think I would be. And I think I had my dad was amazing, and my dad is amazing. I love him, but he's very critical. To help me, but that's how he. That's how how he operated. And so I probably didn't deal with criticism very well. I take criticism quite badly. I've had to then spend a lot of my career, putting things in place to manage that. So, I'm good now at a lot of stuff. But for example, my Achilles heels, because I'm so desperately good at DJing, if people criticize me for that, because I love it, I still wear that a bit. Now I've got better that I don't give a shit if people online say anything. But if you were to say and watch me and go, fuck me, how's your crap? I'd be like, oh God, Will's like one of my peers, one of my idols here, that's cut me deep. But what I was trying to say in a roundabout way with all this is that I have to work very hard at all this stuff, and everything that I've said to you on this call, I do on a daily basis and practice it. And that's how you build that up, because, people read self-help books, they get motivated, which is the most dangerous thing in the world, and then they don't do any of the work, and then they move on to another self-help book and they don't get anywhere. Motivation is awful. Fuck motivation off. You need resilience, and you develop resilience through things like using negativity. So say, for example, you felt like you should be playing Red Rocks headlining. You're like, next year I'm going to prove these motherfuckers, and you go and double down, you make more music, you do everything, you dominate, and that's how you do it. Or you go, I want to play headline Red Rocks, and you go competition. Well, he's done that. I'm going to have competition. I'm going to be better than him. And then you do it, and then you sort of look at it and going, right, well, I've got, I can look at past memory. So I know that if I do this will lead to me being a headline in Red Rocks. And so you dip into different kind of almost buckets of things you use to get you up in the day. And that's how you build your resilience. And that's kind of what I do with all this stuff, really. And I have to revisit it, and I get it wrong all the time, and I have moments, but I can always come back to kind of a checklist in my head if I'm lost a bit of what to do. And that's how you develop this stuff. And that's how, after a period of time, you start almost doing it by not even thinking about it. But it is something you have to think, because as I was going to say, sorry, is that when you do like a lot of corporate people, if any corporate people listen to your podcast, no doubt they've had a team building person that comes in and they write like success on a whiteboard and everyone goes like what, why and how, and everyone chimes in, everyone goes, yeah, it's amazing, and they leave and they never look at any of it again.
Yeah.
So excellence is something you have to revisit every day. All the things I've told you have to do every fucking day. It's like training. If you don't train, you get out of shape. You have to do it. And you're like, but surely I've trained enough now. Doesn't my body know to stay? It's like, no, you have to do it every day. And if you want to be better, it's like you have to do it every day. And all these behaviors, you have to revisit. And the people who do revisit it or do it, people do it by subconsciously, some people do it anyway, are the ones that are successful. And you can always, if you look at billionaires' books and super successful people, you know, there aren't miracles. It's hard work. It's working smart. It's doing what other people aren't prepared to do. It's reaching out for help. It's, it's looking after your mind. It's being, critical and self-analytical and all these bits and pieces. And it's every time you fuck up, you don't worry about it. You get up and go again, because someone gave me a great analogy that when you have an artist, you only ever see the final picture hanging on the wall. You don't see the 50 sketches scrumpled up in the bin.
Yeah.
You only ever see the end product, and the mistakes are what makes you better. If you can see it like that. So if I fucked up on that thing with Bob's and Clarke, it then made me look at how I was DJing and what my setup was like and why and how do I stop that happening again. And I used it as a tool. And I went, right, well, my mixing was on point. What did I do wrong? How can I not make sure that doesn't happen? So every time on my rider or whatever, when I mix, I now know not to do that. And I just took a learning from it. And I moved on. And so, eventually that's the way you got to operate all the way, I think.